Most zombie movies are forgettable. Cheap scares, weak characters, and plots that fall apart before the ending. But every once in a while, a zombie film comes along that critics cannot ignore. A film that earns its place not just in horror history, but in cinema history. And the best part is that every title in this ranking is available now on streaming or digital platforms, depending on your region. From genre-defining classics to a $25,000 film with a perfect score, these are 7 zombie movies that are almost perfect. Night of the Living Dead. This movie does not just belong on this list. It is the reason this list exists. George A. Romero's 1968 film did not simply make a great horror movie. It invented the zombie genre as the world came to know it. Before this film, zombies were Haitian folklore creatures with no hunger and no menace. Romero replaced all of that with something far harder to explain and far harder to escape. The dead rose. They wanted to consume the living, and there was no reason for any of it. Shot in black and white on almost no budget, the film traps strangers in a farmhouse and never lets the tension breathe. The casting was quietly radical for its time. The ending was brutal in a way audiences were not ready for. And the social commentary woven through every scene made it something far more serious than a horror film was expected to be. Night of the Living Dead holds 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. It did not just start a genre, it set a standard most films in the genre have never reached. Dawn of the Dead. This movie proves that the right sequel does not just continue a story. It expands the idea into something bigger and more uncomfortable. 10 years after Night of the Living Dead, Romero moved the apocalypse into an American shopping mall. 4 survivors barricade themselves inside, surrounded by the dead and by everything they no longer need. The zombies shuffle through department stores, not because they are hunting, but because they are drawn back to the only place they ever knew. Romero understood that the mall was not just a setting, it was a statement about consumption, habit, and the emptiness underneath ordinary life. Dawn of the Dead holds 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is one of the rare sequels that expands the original's idea into something the first film could not have said alone. 28 days later, this movie changed what a zombie could be, and after it came out, the genre was never quite the same. Danny Boyle opens the film on a single image, Cillian Murphy, alone in an empty London. No traffic, no crowd, just silence. 4 weeks earlier, a virus called Rage was released from a lab. It does not kill. It burns through its hosts, strips away everything human, and spreads in seconds. The infected do not shuffle. They sprint. They are relentless in a way that felt completely new. What makes 28 Days Later more than a well-executed horror film is the moral weight it carries. Every choice the characters make costs them something, and the film never pretends otherwise. 28 Days Later holds 87% on Rotten Tomatoes and 7.6 on IMDb. It proved that zombie movies could carry real weight. Shaun of the Dead. This movie should not work as well as it does. A zombie horror film built around a directionless man whose apocalypse plan involves his local pub. That premise should not produce a near-perfect film. And yet here it is. Edgar Wright's 2004 masterpiece follows Shaun not as a hero ready for the moment, but as someone who spent most of his adult life avoiding this kind of responsibility. The comedy is sharp, the horror is genuine, and the story, underneath, about growing up before the world forces you to, earns every emotional beat it asks you to feel. Shaun of the Dead holds 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is the best horror comedy ever made, and it is not particularly close. Rick, this movie is one of the most effective horror films ever made in any genre, and almost everything that makes it work comes from a single decision. You only see what the camera sees. A Spanish found footage film from 2007, Rick follows a television reporter and her cameraman into a Barcelona apartment building on what begins as a routine call. Something is spreading. Authorities seal the exits. Nobody gets out. The format is the weapon. No wide shots, no safe angles, no moments of calm. The dread compounds with every flaw, and the final sequence is one of the most disturbing endings in horror history. Rec holds 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is the definitive found footage horror film, and it earns that title completely. Train to Busan. This movie took a genre that was already overcrowded in 2016 and made something that felt completely new. Not because it reinvented the rules, but because it understood that rules without emotion are just mechanics. Set almost entirely on a high-speed train during a zombie outbreak in South Korea, the film follows a cold and emotionally absent father who boards with his young daughter for what was supposed to be a simple trip. Within an hour, the train becomes a sealed disaster, and the story stops being about zombies almost immediately. It becomes about what kind of person you are when survival forces a choice between yourself and a stranger. Train to Busan holds 93% on Rotten Tomatoes and 7.6 on IMDb. It is the best zombie film made in the last decade, and it is only number 2 because of what comes next. Number 1. One Cut of the Dead. This film should not have worked. No budget, no recognizable cast, no studio support, and no reason to exist beyond one filmmaker's refusal to accept that those things matter, and it became the highest-rated zombie film ever made. One Cut of the Dead is a 2017 Japanese film made for approximately $25,000. It opens with a 37-minute single-take sequence as a low-budget film crew is attacked by actual zombies mid-shoot. The sequence is awkward. Parts of it are deliberately bad. And then the film rewinds, restarts, and recontextualizes everything you just watched in a way that is completely impossible to predict. What the second half reveals is not a twist. It is a different film hiding inside the first one, about the obsessive, chaotic, deeply human experience of trying to make something when everything is working against you. One Cut of the Dead holds 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. 100%. The most critically perfect zombie film ever made. It cost less than a used car. It will stay with you longer than anything else on this list. So now the question is simple. In these zombie films, what feels more terrifying to you? The undead themselves, or the world that created them? Write it in the comments. And if you want more rankings covering the darkest horror the genre has ever produced, subscribe now, because the next list is going to be even more brutal.